Today I'm going to give you my top tips for finding number partners to 100. Before we do that, we just need to think about what are number partners to 10. So if I said 7 add something equals 10, I'm looking for the other number that when added to 7 gives me 10. And we should know without thinking that that's 7 and 3. If I'm thinking of number partners to make 100 that are multiples of 10, I can still use my number partners to 10 to help me. So if I'm thinking about what goes with 70 to make 100, you can see that I've multiplied each one by 10. So 7 and 3 makes 10, so 70 and 30 should make 100. This is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be using numbers or finding number partners for 2-digit numbers up to 100. So if I have 43 add something equals 100, I'm thinking what number do I add to 43 to get to 100? Now I can do this in lots of different ways, but the easiest way to understand and not make mistakes until you're really confident is to think about it into 2 jumps, using your number bonds to 10 and then your number bonds to 100. So I'm going to start with 43. I'm going to think of that 3 and I'm going to think, what do I add to that 3 to get me to my next whole 10, my next multiple of 10, which happens to be 50. And I should know that 3 and 7 will take me to the next 10, which is 50. From there, I can go straight from 50 to 100. What do I add to 50 to get to 100? Well, if I know 5 and 5 is 10, I should know that 50 add another 50 takes me to 100. What do I add in total to 43 to get to 100? Well, I added 7 to get to 50 and another 50 to get to 100. So the total amount added was 57. So 43 and 57 gets me to 100. What I see quite often happening where children get this wrong is they just use the number partners to 10 for the first number. So they go 3 and 7 gives me 10 and 40 and 60 gives me 100, and then they put it together to get 67, and that's 10 out. So I'm just going to do another one for you. When you're confident that you're doing it on a number line, and you might not need to use the number line, you might be able to do this in your head, you should be able, hopefully by the end of this session, to instantly be able to tell me what number goes with another 2-digit number to make the total of 100. So I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do, let's have a look, 38 add something gives me 100. So I'm looking to find what that missing number is. What do I have to add to 38 to give me to take me to 100? So I'm starting with 38, thinking what's my next whole 10 after 30? 38, which is 40. What do I add to 38 to get me to 40? Well, I know 8 and 2 takes me to 40. What do I have to add to 40 to get me to 100? Well, if I know 4 and 6 makes 10, I should know that 40 and 60 makes 100. So what did I add in total to get me from 38 to 100? I added 2 to get me to 40, and I added another 60 to get to me 100. So I added 62 in total. So 38 and 62 equals 100. This also works for subtraction calculations. So if you start with 100, and you think, starting with 100, I'm taking away something and I get the answer of 54. You're saying, well, what do I have to add to 54 still to get to 100? So I'm saying 54, what's the next 10 along? The multiple of 10 is 60. What do I add to 4 to get me to 60? Well, I know 4 and 6 makes the next 10. What do I add to 60 to get to 100? Well, I know 6 and 4 makes 10, so 60 and 40 makes 100. And if I add all of those up, I've jumped 46 in total. So if I start with 100 and I take away 46, I'll end up with 54. And to help us understand that, if you can't understand why we're counting on to do a subtraction, think back to the bar model where we've started with our whole number, which was 100. We took away something which was 54, and we wanted to find out what that number was. So 54 add something will give us 100, and we know that is 46. So if you're doing it in your head, this is the next step on. If I wanted to know what 72 add something takes me to 100, so what do I have to add to 72 to get me to 100? I can think, what do I add to 72 to get me to 80? I add 8. I'm at 80 now. What do I add to 80 to get to 100? I add 20. So I've actually used my sort of parking my numbers, my writing the numbers down to help me with the answer. I'll do one more, and then I want you to have a go of them yourself. So I'll do both methods. I'll do jumping along a number line, and I'll do my shortened method. You do whichever you prefer. You might still want to have a go at practicing your number bonds to 10. Right, let's have a look. So if I had 23, what do I add to 23 to get to 100? So I'm starting with 23. What do I add to get to 30, which is my next multiple of 10 on? 3 add 7 takes me to 30. What do I add to 30 to get to 100? Well, I know 3 and 7 gets me to 10, so 30 add 70 will take me to 100. How much have I added on in total? I've added 70 and 7, which is 77. If I was doing that in my shortened method, I would say 23, what do I add to 23 to get to 30? I add 7, and I'm putting that in the units column, so I can put all the ones column. There's my tens, that might help you. So 23 add 7 gets me to 30. What do I add to 30 to get to 100? I add 7. So I've added 77 on in total. Right, I hope that helps. See if you can have a go at the practice questions that I put on your activity for maths today. Good luck.